Okay, so let's first of all quickly understand before we actually start getting into any of the programs. Let us first of all understand which all programming languages which we use and how do we actually use them. So as we have discussed, Salesforce is on MVC framework. Okay, what's an MVC framework? Model View Controller. Model View Controller. So a framework of an application where we have three layers. Model is the database, view is the user interface, controller is the set of logics. Okay, so any application which has these three layers is said to be on MVC framework. In Salesforce, we have these this kind of a structure. We have model, we have view, we have controller. We have the backend database, we have the front end pages, and we have the logics written which control the entire behavior of the application. Correct. Now, the thing is that when you are talking about an MVC framework, whenever we talk about customization, if I say that, okay, I have to customize a certain thing, or if I have to make changes to a certain thing, it can be on the view layer, it can be on the controller layer, or it can be in the model layer, right? On one of the layers. So whenever you are talking about customization, you are primarily talking about one of the layers, like either model or the view or the controller, right? Either you're going to change the user interface, or you're going to change the logics, or you're going to change something in the data model, correct? So now we have different languages which we are going to use here. One is Visualforce. Visualforce is primarily a markup language. Okay, something very similar to HTML. It's similar to HTML, and this is something which can be used for designing the user interface. Used for the user interface. Then you have Apex. Apex is a proper programming language, okay, a full-fledged programming language. And this is basically used for the logics part. It is used for writing the logics. Apart from this, there are two other query languages, SOQL and SOSL. These two we are going to use for querying the data from the database. SOQL and SOSL. So we'll get into these three things later. Okay, eventually. We are going to start with Visualforce today. We're going to start talking about Visualforce. How can we create our own user interfaces? We have seen that we are able to create user interfaces with the page layouts also. Salesforce actually gives us the option of page layout, where you can actually go ahead and create the page layout. But page layout actually gives you very limited options. You can just change the order of the fields and things like that. Whether you want to display a field or not, whether you want to make a field required or not. That's the only thing that you can do with the page layout, right? So it does not give you full control over the page. It gives you certain options. In case you want to customize your page beyond the capabilities of page layout, then you have to deal with the Visualforce, right? So Visualforce is what we are going to start talking about. So there are a few basics which I want you to understand, and then we will start creating pages and creating interfaces using Visualforce. Uh, First question that I have here is, how many of you have done a bit of HTML sometime in your life? 10 years back, 15 years back, 50 years back, some HTML. Please type a yes in case you have done it in the chat window. Anyone who has done a bit of HTML coding, type a yes in the chat window. People who have not done, type no. Okay, very good. some of us have done HTML, some of us have not done it at all. Okay, no problem. So, though we don't need to know the HTML, but still I would suggest people who have not done HTML ever in their life. Uh, there's this site called w3schools.com. Okay. So you can spend some time on w3schools.com looking about HTML. One second, let me show it to you. Okay. So if you just go to w3schools.com and click on learn HTML, and if you can spend, people who have not done HTML or people who have been out of touch with HTML for quite some time can go to this site and click on learn HTML and spend some time with it. I don't want you to spend more than 2 hours on this. Okay. If you can spend a couple of hours, you will have enough understanding about HTML. Okay. So HTML is just a markup language which is used for doing the web designing. All right. And just to give you a hint, it's like, for example, there's a text which you have written and you want to make that text as bold. Let's say you have written hello. You want to make it bold. So HTML basically gives you tags for that. So if you use this tag, the text will become bold. If you want to make it italic, there is another tag for it. So this is how simple it is. So it's basically not a programming language. It's just set of tags that you need to understand what you need to display, how you want to display, and for everything there is a tag. Right? We call these tags. So that's how simple it is. So if you actually go through this W3 schools, you will have a basic understanding of the commonly used tags. Okay, and that's all you need. You don't need to become an expert in HTML. Okay, but it will be good if you can, after today's session, of course, if you can spend at least 1 or 2 hours on the HTML tutorial part from W3 schools. Okay, that will help. Okay, so Visualforce is also a markup language very similar to HTML, and in Visualforce we have tags for everything. What you want to bring in. So basically it's a language for creating the user interface, right? So in Visualforce all that we do is we just keep on creating the tags, and with the help of the tags we control what exactly we want to display on the page. Got it? So it's a markup language. And all that we will do here is we will use certain tags to design the page. What do we want to display on the page? How do we want that thing to be displayed? Do you want a button? Do you want a text? Do you want a logo or an image or uh, a link? Whatever want to bring on the page, that's what we will do using Visualforce. So it's very simple language. All right. So before we talk more about Visualforce and understand different concepts here, let's first of all see how do you create a Visualforce page. Okay. It's pretty simple creating a Visualforce page. Let me log in into Salesforce and show it to you. Okay. So before you start creating a Visualforce page, you just have to make a small setting change. Okay, you have to enable the development mode. You have to enable the development mode, right? How do you enable the development mode? You just need to go to My Settings, go to Personal, go to Advanced User Details, right? So to enable the development mode for yourself, you just have to go to My Settings, Personal, Advanced User Details. Under Advanced User Details, you will see all the details of the user. Click on Edit, scroll down. There's an option called Development Mode. On the right hand side, you will see there is an option called Development Mode. By default, it's not enabled. You have to enable it. Okay, so before you start creating your Visualforce pages, please make sure that you enable the development mode. Save it. Got it? Okay. So now the development mode is enabled. Now we are ready to start creating Visualforce page. Okay. So to create the Visualforce page, very simple. You just need to go to the URL. Go to the URL. Delete everything after salesforce.com. Okay. Delete everything after salesforce.com, then type /apex slash page name. So you can give any name to the page. I'm going to call it P1. Okay, your page name cannot have spaces and special characters. Apart from that, your page name can have uh, the characters and it can have the numbers, alphabets and numbers basically. So that's it. So while you're trying to create a new page, all that you have to do is just go to the URL, delete everything after salesforce.com, then type in apex. So salesforce.com slash apex slash your page name. Page name is whatever you want to give. Okay. Just make sure that it does not have spaces and special characters. That's it. It can have alphabets and numbers, and it should not start with a number. Press enter. You will be thrown an error, Visualforce error. It says page P1 does not exist. It does not exist obviously because I have not yet created this page. And just below that you will have the option of create page P1. Okay, so when I type this, I get the error because the page already does not exist. It gives me an option to create the page. Click on this and your Visualforce page is ready. See? Now your P1 is created. Congratulations, this is your new page P1. Now this is your page, Visualforce interface. You can control this the way you want. You can display whatever data you want to display here. You can. So basically that's what we are talking about, right? We are talking about creating the user interface. So now on the user interface, you want to display an image, you want to bring a button, you want to display a table of data, you want to display, you know, some tabs, whatever you want. That's something which we can create, right? So, but before that, we have to create the page, and that's what we have done. So now this is my Visualforce page, correct? Now, once you've created your Visualforce page, you will notice us, at the bottom you will notice this editor. If you click on this, you see the page name here. If you click on this, the editor will open. This is the code editor. This is where you have to write the code. As I said, we are going to display different things on the page. So what is being displayed on the page needs to be written inside this. This is where you have to write the code to display whatever you want to display on the page. So this is the code. This is where you're going to write things. So see right now, Congratulations is written. This is your new page, right? So the code editor is there. Now you can change, instead of congratulations, you make hello. If you make any changes in the code, save it. Microphones on mute, please. Save it, and you will see this. The changes get displayed on the page also. So this is how simple it is. Creating a Visualforce page is a matter of, let's say, a 30 seconds. All that you have to do is go to the URL. But before you create a page, a Visualforce page, make sure that you have enabled the development mode. In case you don't enable the development mode, you will not be allowed to create the Visualforce page using this method. And you will also not have the access to this code editor. So development mode is important. Right. So now this is my page.
Can you just show how did you enable the development mode one more time, please?
Development mode, to enable it, all that you have to do is go to my settings,
My settings here.
go to personal, advanced user details, and then click on edit. On the right hand side you will have development mode.
Okay, thank you.
With one question here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Once you have enabled the development mode, uh, does it make any difference to the way you work in Salesforce? Uh, what if we have the development mode, um, checked out
Mm-hmm.
permanently?
Mm-hmm.
Does it create a problem?
Yeah, it will create a problem because you do not have that code editor available with you, right? So
Yeah.
currently what we are doing here is, can we have the microphones muted please? Because I hear some keyboard noise. Anyways, so if you do not have the development mode, basically what the development mode is doing, it gives you this code editor here at the bottom, right? So if I don't have the code editor, if you're creating the Visualforce page and if you don't have this code editor here, you will have difficulties creating it. Like now I am able to make some changes. Let's say I just make a line break here. Click on save. So I can quickly preview what changes are happening on the page, right? So if the development mode is not on, you will have these difficulties. That you'll have to write the code somewhere else and you'll have to do the preview somewhere else. Okay. So any developer would ideally enable the development mode and create Visualforce pages like this. Right? Though there is an alternate of creating a Visualforce page also. There is an alternate way of creating a Visualforce page, but that's something which we are not getting into now. We'll talk about that after a couple of more sessions. I just want you to create pages through this URL approach right now. Okay. Now, so if you look into the code, this line number 2 is a comment and line number 5 is a comment. Okay. So a comment basically is anything which actually does not appear on the page, but just for the reference or something, it has been put in the code. So I can simply delete line number 2 and line number 5. Okay, line 3 and 4 that you see here is basically what you see on the page also, right? This h1 tag that you can see, this is an HTML tag for defining the text as header. H1 is for header. That's the reason why this hello appears a little bold, right? BR is the tag for from HTML for line break. So that's the reason why we got a line break. You put one more line break, save it. See, you want to make this part as italic. See, this text has become italic. Got it? So a lot of HTML tags can be called on Visualforce page. So like, bold, italic, headings, these things can be done. Line breaks, paragraph breaks, these things can be done with HTML tags only. Right? Now, understanding the Visualforce pages. So there are two primary components that we see on a Visualforce page, or that we deal with on a Visualforce page. On a Visualforce page, you have markups and controllers. On a Visualforce page, we have markups and controllers. What is a markup? What you see on the page. Okay, so just to make it simple, a markup is what you see on the page. It can be text, it can be image, it can be a button, it can be a form. Okay, so that's what a markup is. What's a controller? What you don't see but controls the page behavior. Yeah, just give me one quick second. Let me connect it to the charger. 1 second. All right. So markup is basically what you see on the page, and controller is what you don't see on the page, but it actually controls the behavior of the page in a way. So all the backend logic, what will happen when you click on a button? It's not visible to you on the page, but somewhere that instruction must be written, right? So what will happen when I click on a button? What all data will you get to see when you open a certain page? Okay, that logic or that instruction is also written somewhere. So a page primarily comprises of the markups and the controllers. Controller is all the backend logic, the story of the movie, which is actually controlling that what the hero is going to do and what the villain is going to do. And markup is basically the characters that you see on the page. That's how simple it is. Any user interface in this world, be it Visualforce, be it HTML, something else, will primarily have these two things. The markups, what is visible on the page, the controllers, the logics which are being controlled. Alright. Now, so whatever we see on this page as of now, it's all markup. There's no controller because actually this is a very static kind of a page. Nothing is happening. We don't have a button. We don't have to do anything on this page. So this is a static kind of a page. Apart from this, there is another concept that we need to understand. Components and attributes. What is component and what is attribute? So now if you come to this page, this is what is being displayed on the page. Instead of this also, you can just display normal text or whatever you want. This is a component. Apex page is a component. Okay. So in Visualforce, we have several components. Whatever we want to bring on the page, we can call that component. Like if you want to build a table in the page, so there's a component for table. You want to build a form on the page, so there's a component for form. You want to build a mm, you want to build, let's say, a button, so there's a component for button. So for everything we have a component in Visualforce. The most common component that we have is an apex page component, and this is a required component. So usually your components will start with apex colon and they will end with apex colon. It's a page component, start like this. Very similar to your HTML tags, right? So there's a start of it and then there is an end of it. So this defines basically a page component. So any Visualforce page should ideally start with apex page and it should close with an apex page. There should not be anything beyond this apex page. Whatever you want to design, whatever you want to put should be put inside these two components, inside the apex page component. Right? Apart from this, there are a few other components. Like there's a component called apex page block. Okay, so this page block component is basically used for creating this kind of a block in the page. See, rectangular block got created. There's another component called command button. See, this command button component is used for creating a button. Okay, page block component is used for creating a block of page, block a rectangular block in the page. Correct. So this ways for everything we have component, right? If you want to build a table here, or if you want to build an input field, or if you want to build an input text area, for everything we have a component. Okay, a pick list, a checkbox, almost everything can be got with the help of components, right? So out of all these components, apex page component is the most common one. This is something which has to be there in every page. Every page has to start with apex page and it has to close end with apex page. Correct. So that is going to be the outermost component for any of your Visualforce pages. Now, once you have created the page, now you have the option of putting whatever you want to put inside the page. So I can delete everything. Save. So it will make a blank page for me. Type this is a blank page. Save. So that gets reflected. Correct. So that's about the component thing. Now, what is attribute? Every component has a few attributes associated with it. So attribute basically controls how does the component appear on your Visualforce page. Okay. For an example, Apex page component has an attribute called sidebar. Okay, and that sidebar attribute will help you control whether you want to display the sidebar on this page or not. Sidebar equals false. By default, sidebar is true, and that's the reason why you are able to see the sidebar. If you say sidebar equals false and save it, you won't be seeing the sidebar anymore. So the sidebar is an attribute. Apex page is the component. This is a component. and sidebar is an attribute of the component. You have the option of keeping it as true or false. So this attribute is basically going to control how your component is going to look. The same way there is another attribute called show header. The show header means this header. I will make this also false. Okay. So with the help of attribute, I am able to control how my components will appear on the page. Alright. So this way every component has an attribute. For example, we were talking about apex page block. Apex page block creates a block, rectangular block here. There's an attribute called title. See, got it? So basically the attributes will help you use your components more efficiently, the way you want to actually display the components. Clear? Okay. Now, so we have understood how to create a Visualforce page. We have understood how to enable the development mode. We have understood markups and controllers and components and attributes. Let me know if anyone has any question here. So by now you should be clear on how to enable development mode. You should be okay with this. You should be clear on how to create a Visualforce page, and you should be clear on what is a markup and what's a controller. You should also understand what's a component and what's an attribute. Let me know if anyone has a question on any of these so far. No? We're good? Okay. So whatever we are actually seeing on the page is all markup. So all this what I've created is all markup. Now let's talk a little about the controller part. Let's understand the controller side of it. Controller is basically the set of instructions or the programming logic or the program which is written to control the page, control the behavior of the page or control the different components on the page, right? And a controller also controls what data is going to appear on the page. When you're creating a Visualforce page, uh, most of the times you will be creating a page to display some data. Otherwise, what else will you do with a Visualforce page? When I'm creating a page on Salesforce, then I am definitely going to display some data or some information on that page. So a controller, controls what data comes on the page, what happens when you interact with your components on the page. What happens when you click on a button, what happens when you click on a link, what happens when you load the page, what happens when you refresh the page. All these instructions are written in the controller. Okay, so this is where a lot of instructions are written. But there are different types of controllers. Standard controller, standard this controller, custom controller, extension controller. Okay, so these are four different types of controllers. So whenever you have a page, that page requires the set of instructions or the set of logics, right? These are four different ways of supplying the set of instructions to your page. Okay. Okay. So before I start talking about each one of them, Let's just understand one more thing. We see there are so many pages in Salesforce by default, right? Forget about Visualforce page for some time. Just let's go to our normal site. Okay, so for next 5 minutes, just forget that there is anything called a Visualforce page. Let me just go to the normal account page or any other page. I go to account page. When I click on a record, when I click on this link, this record opens up. And on that page, so it basically opens a page, right? On this page, I just see the details of this record only. There must be some instruction written somewhere which is controlling this logic, right? Apart from what you see on the page, there must be some backend logic or backend instruction written somewhere which is controlling it. When you are on this page, you have the option of delete. You have the option of edit. If I click on delete, what will happen? The record will get deleted. This logic also must be written somewhere. Some instruction must be written. Okay. When I click on edit, it will give me the editable interface. This is also written somewhere. Right? So in the back end, for this particular page, for account page, all these logics are written. Same way if you go to a contacts page, you open a contact, click on a contact. The page opens, it displays only the details of the record which was clicked on. Then you have the edit option, you have the clone option. What is the clone gonna do? It's gonna make a copy of the record. Delete will delete the record. Edit will allow you to edit the record, right? So all these standard objects or all these objects that you see, the standard ones, by default have these pages, and these pages are being controlled through some logic, which means by default there are some controlling logics written in Salesforce. Something which is controlling my contact page, something which is controlling the account page, opportunity page. For every object we have a page layout for every object, and that means that we have a set of logic written for every object. Correct? So now, when you have the logics written already written for each object in Salesforce, like for account there is logic written, for opportunity there is logic written, for contact there is logic written. Okay. So the controllers are already there within Salesforce. Those controllers are called standard controllers. When I'm talking about a standard controller, I'm talking about a controller which is available already with Salesforce, which is being used by Salesforce on the standard pages, on the page layouts. These are called standard controllers. Okay. So in standard controller, you really don't have to do anything. You just have to call the controller because the instructions are already written. Got it? So those controllers are ready. All that you have to do is you just have to call it and use it on the Visualforce page. That's it. You really don't have to do anything there. Okay. Standard list controller is also same. The only difference between a standard controller and a list controller is standard controller will be used for displaying one record on a page. Standard list controller will be used for displaying multiple records on the page. Okay. Then comes the custom controller. What's a custom controller? This is where you start writing the instructions. You start writing the program. Okay. Now, there's a particular behavior of this clone button, right? So whatever is written in the backend program, it's actually gonna behave like that. Like if I click on clone, it is actually gonna clone a record, create a duplicate of the record. Okay. Now I want that no, when I click on clone, it should delete this record. Let's say I want my own logics to work here. Then you have to go and write the program, because the standard logic is that clone will basically create a duplicate. But I want that no. If I click on this clone, it should send an email to someone, and after that it should go and create one account, and after that this contact should get deleted. This is what I want. If you want that, you can do that. You can put your custom logics. But for your custom logic, you have to write the program yourself, right? So you cannot use the Salesforce default program for that, because default program is something else, right? So if you want to make changes, if you want to customize, then you just go and write the logics on your own. That is the custom controller. Got it? So standard controller is basically the controllers which are being used by Salesforce on the standard pages. You can call those controllers on Visualforce pages also. Advantage that you will have if you are using a standard controller, the advantage that you will have is you don't have to write each and every line of the program. All that you have to do, you just have to call it. Got it? But you will only be able to use the standard functionalities. Okay? Custom controller is where you have the option of writing your own program. You can control things the way you want. You can create your own buttons. You can create your own actions. Okay. But the problem is that you will be writing everything. You will not have the option of leveraging any existing resource. So you will be writing each and every line of code. Correct? So standard controller has an advantage, easy to use, but restricted to functionalities. Custom controller, you can extend the functionalities as much as you want, but you will have to write it. You will have to write it from the scratch. Correct? And controller extension is a type of controller which is used for extending the functionality. So controller extension is also a program which can be used for extending the functionalities of an existing controller. As the name suggests, extension, it can be used with a standard or a custom controller, and it can be used for extending the functionalities. So whatever functionality is available with that particular controller extension can be used for extending the functionalities. Got it? So while you are creating a page, and while you start considering uh, you know building some logics for the page, and controlling the behavior of the page, you have two options. Either use the standard controller. Primarily you have two options. Either go ahead and use the standard controller, okay, easy to use but limited functionality, or go with the custom controller. You will have the option of writing more functionalities or customizing the functionalities that you want, the way you want, but you have to write each and every line of code. Got it? So that's basically the approach. So you will have to choose either of the approach. So we are going to start with standard controller. We are going to start with the standard controller, and eventually we will get into all other types of controllers. Okay. Before that, I just have a question here from someone who says component and attributes are related to each other. Yeah, components and attributes are related to each other. Yes. So each component has several attributes, right? Every component has certain attributes, and those attributes are basically used for controlling the look and feel of the component. All right. Okay. So on a page, now come back to the Visualforce page again. Creating a page is in this. This time we didn't throw error because the page is already there. Okay. Now, on a page you call a controller. Controller is an attribute mode of page component. Okay. So how do you call a controller? There's a controller separate program written. You are actually not going to write the program on the page. The program will be written somewhere else. That program needs to be called here. That set of instruction needs to be called here. Okay. How are we going to call it? We're going to call it on the apex page component. So I am going to call standard controller account. Okay. So what we understand that for standard controller, every object in Salesforce, and listen to this very carefully, every object in Salesforce, be it standard or custom, every object in Salesforce has page layouts. We are able to create page layouts with every object, correct? With our custom objects as well. So every object in Salesforce basically has a controller, okay, which controls the behavior of the standard page layouts of that object. Okay, and name of the controller is exactly same as name of the object. Okay, so account object has a controller, standard controller, which controls the behavior of all account page layouts, and name of that controller is account. The same way, contact object also has a standard controller which controls the behavior of its standard pages. Name of that controller is contact. Just for our convenience, they have kept the name of the standard controllers and name of the objects same. Okay. So now on a page, if I want to design a page for account, I have to call the standard controller for the account object, and it's as simple as this. All that I have to do is you just have to say standard controller equals account. Got it? Now when you write this and save it, your page has got connected to the account standard controller. Got it? Now you can use this page for displaying data from account. Now this is connected to the account object, this page. Earlier till the time you did not define a controller. So this page was just a simple page with only markups. There was no controller. Now since you have defined a controller on this, and the controller is account, you can display account information here. Account name. Let me delete all this. Okay. Now I can display the data from account object here on this page. I'm trying to display the name of an account, but it does not show anything. Do you see the name of the account? All right. Put the expression. I don't see the name of the account. Any ideas? What may be the reason? I connected it with the account object. I'm saying display, show me the account name. It doesn't show me any account name. Anyone? Why it is not showing me the data? What can be the reason?
Select the data.
Sorry?
We didn't
Select the record.
specify which account to be shown.
Yes. So you have said account dot name. That's fine, but in account object there can be 50,000 records, there can be 100,000 records. Which account name you want to see, that we have not mentioned, right? So for a standard controller page, basically uh, the page is meant for one record, as I said earlier also. Standard controller page is for one record, list controller is for multiple records. So if it is for one record, which one record? So that one record, we have to take the ID of the record and put it in the URL. So if you click on any of the record, you will see the ID in the URL. Copy the ID Go to Visualforce page, put question mark ID equals and paste the ID. Press enter. Now, so it gets the reference which record information to be shown. That reference it is getting from the ID, and then it shows us the name here. Correct? So which object to connect with, that's defined in the standard controller. What field to display, that is written in the program. But which record to be displayed, that's in the URL, that's in the ID. Right? Why are we not putting the ID in the program? Why are we keeping ID outside the program? Because if you put the ID in the program, then it will become a static page only working for that record. If I, somewhere in this program, if I specify the ID, this program will work only for that ID. That's the reason why we have kept ID outside the program. Now, if you change the ID here, instead of this, if you pick some other ID, it's Burlington Textiles, I will pick ID of some other record, Edge Communications. Okay, when the ID changes, the data in the page also changes. Correct. So you just have to create one page for an object, and it will work for all the records of that object. Here, so that's how you connect uh, a Visualforce page with a standard controller for an object.
I have a question.
Hmm. Please go ahead.
Uh, what I understand is if you bring the ID inside the program, it becomes static, which means it will work only for that record.
Correct.
To keep it outside, then you are basically saying that Visualforce page can only be created by record, one at a time.
Standard controller page. The standard controller page is the standard controller is basically meant for a Visualforce page
One
which
record.
displays one record. Yeah. So standard controller page
Yes,
is meant for detail pages.
right,
This kind of pages. This is a detail page. This kind of pages.
right. So we are yet to do standard list controller, right? Where
Yes.
you can do
Yes.
multiple.
Yeah. How to display multiple records? That's going to be a different concept. So standard controller
Okay.
page will always display data from one record, and that record's reference needs to be given there. So this is basically uh, if you think of any other website, you will be looking into two different type of pages. One is a list page, one is a detail page. For example, if you go to a job portal, you will see that there is a page where all the jobs are listed, and then you click on a link and then you reach a page which is a detailed page for that particular job. Right? Same way it happens with a lot of other websites. So same concept is applicable here. In Salesforce also we have list pages and then we have detail pages. Standard controller is primarily meant for creating detail pages. Right? And that's the reason why you always have to supply the ID. We are definitely not going to supply ID manually like this, the way we are doing it today. There are different ways of supplying the ID automatically, but for our learning purpose, we are going to copy and paste it. Right? How do you put the ID here? Page name question mark ID equals, and then put the ID of the record. That's how it is. Right? Okay. So